lot of people think that this is going to be Marcus Freeman's breakout year. We'll see if that ends up being the case as they face a tough road test against the Texas A&M Aggies. Hi, everybody. I am Colin Bashnigal, your host here at Bash the CFB Show. You can find me over here on TikTok. I'm going to be very active on game day this week. I will be having in the future reaction videos to a lot of these games on YouTube, but it just depends on my schedule. This week and next week's schedule just so happens to not line up for me to be home as much as I would like to be. So TikTok this week is going to get a full influx of all of this stuff. So let's get straight in to this ball game, Notre Dame at Texas A&M. Let's break it down. All right. So Notre Dame with a massive injury at the tackle spot for them. Their left tackle is going to be out for the year, presumably, with a torn pectoral muscle. And in comes a true freshman at the left tackle spot. Yikes, that is not going to be good. But it is a good thing that they do have a mobile Riley Leonard to be able to direct this offense for Notre Dame. But where Notre Dame is going to be able to really work this game, the matchup that I see, when I look at this Texas A&M defense, I see a strong interior guy and Shamar Turner to be able to completely shut it down. Strong edge rushers to be able to get after the quarterback, especially with a true freshman at offensive tackle with Nick Scorton, the Purdue transfer, but also Shamar Stewart, who's going to be on the other edge. They got a pretty solid secondary over there as well for Texas A&M and a hell of a scheme with Mike Elko's defense. And I'm very curious to see, by the way, how much Riley Leonard playing for Mike Elko really affects how he's going to be able to work against this Texas A&M defense. I'm interested to see that. But where Notre Dame is going to specifically be able to have success in this game is going to be through the ground and pound. You take a look at what Texas A&M has. Young linebackers, not a ton of depth there. That is their weakness. If those young linebackers cannot fill their gaps in the run game, and you could see a big game out of Jadarian Price and, who I really love, Jeremiah Love. All right, so on the offensive side of the ball, it's going to be that type of recipe, and then put those defensive ends in a little bit of a blender because they have to respect the running threat that is Riley Leonard. They're not going to be able to throw the ball super well. I'd be kind of surprised if they could. I am pretty high on Jordan Faison and Jaden Greathouse, the young wide receivers that they had kept on their roster, but I am not as high on the rest of the group. Bo Collins is there. Elijah Mitchell, who transfers in from FIU, is also there. So a couple of transfers at the wide receiver spot. But overall, they lost a ton of depth to the portal in the offseason. I'm not expecting for that throw game to be overly dynamic. On the defensive side of the ball, I think Notre Dame is going to be, again, very physical up front. But I do think that Texas A&M has an offensive line that's good enough that they can be able to battle that. So you're going to see a heavy dose of Le'Veon Moss and Amari Daniels with the injury, of course, to Ruben Owens right before the season got kicked off just a couple of weeks ago. He was announced to be out. But I'm going to be very curious to see what Green does in the throw game here and then what these four wide receivers do. They got four really, really good wide receivers that they're going to rotate through. They're going to start with Noah Thomas, the big 6'5", 6'6" freak of an athlete on the perimeter, who's going to be a matchup nightmare and an interesting matchup for a physical corner and Benjamin Morrison when they get matched up. But they also got other guys like Jahdae Walker and Cyrus Allen. And they also have Moose Muhammad. You can't forget about the redshirt senior Moose Muhammad, ready to really make a big statement for Texas A&M. I think Connor Wegman in this passing attack is going to be on fire. I don't think Notre Dame has the secondary depth to be able to combat it. And though I think Notre Dame, generally speaking, has success against a lot of teams in the throw game, I think the fact that Texas A&M is going to be able to run the ball, but also be able to throw the ball, that balance is going to put these linebackers in a blender. It's going to put this secondary, too, a little bit in a blender. And overall, I got Texas A&M with pretty tough defense and a balanced offense, winning a relatively low-scoring game. I got A&M pulling it off by a score of 24-20, close one. But I think that A&M is maybe the better team, but they also got that home field advantage behind them. I think they have the better coach with Mike Elko. Home field advantage has mattered for Notre Dame under Marcus Freeman. They do play better when they're at home. They took Ohio State right down to the wire a year ago at home. They beat USC at home, but you saw what Louisville was. You saw how bad that game was for Notre Dame. It was a disaster. The year before, like they struggled to move the ball against Ohio State, really did not have much of a shot in that game in the horseshoe, but then they blow out Clemson when Clemson's vying for a playoff spot. Overall, Notre Dame's got to prove it to me for me to believe it. And right now, I just don't believe it because they have not proven it to me under Marcus Freeman. I'm going to, despite the fact that they did add Mike Denbrock in the offseason and replace him with Jared Parker, and I think that's an upgrade, I still think A&M wins this.